I'm Claire and I'm an artist. Going to start with just grabbing a colour. I've chosen blue to begin with. It's just an acrylic paint. I'll pour it on. Then I'm going to grab a brush and just paint that down. You can go big strokes, small strokes. I'm going to demonstrate sort of using the palette knife as well. So just smearing it on and getting some colour across the canvas like that. And I also love if you get a dripping sort of effect where you hold that up and you can see it drip a little bit and the blue starts to drip down the page. So then I've just swapped colours to a purple colour tone and just applying that very liberally on. I'll grab this light blue colour and it creates quite a thick texture. And then I'll swap and grab a pinky colour. So it's just doing all different base colours, and then I like to generally go back and once it dries, do layers on top of layers, because if you try and paint something from start to finish in the beginning, it can look quite wishy-washy. So I let things dry, set them aside and then come back to them. I've set it aside to dry and I am going to come back and add some finishing touches of some white dots. How I like to paint is to paint a few things all at once. It then creates a series in the same colourways. So these ones I set aside as well, and you'll see it's all the same colourway. So when I had that pink brush, I would just then go on and do it on here and the other artworks as well. As an artist, you need to learn when to stop, and I look at this artwork and I'm happy. I think it's done. Voila, we have a completed artwork. I'm going to start with painting. Grab a aqua-based colour, whatever colour you feel like. I think I'll just paint little sort of half moons. And what I tend to do when I actually paint the cards, I do a splash of colour on the envelope too, and it ties it all in when the person opens the card. I'm going to do a dash of pink as well. And this is where I'm going to cut to picking a couple of different cool, these are foiled papers, and cut up some half moon shapes as well, and it will tie it all in. I'm just applying some glue directly on the back and gluing it down. Once I've attached the paper on, go back and paint sort of a shape just because I covered up quite a bit of that. And I'll go around the edges and just trim it to make sure that there's no bits overhanging. So all I've done is grab the card and the matching little envelope, and then I'm going to tie it's cute little black and white twine that ties in with all the colours that I've chosen and not. Grabbed some cute little tassels as well, which you can tie through. And we can then also put a pink and blue feather. And there you go, there's the final product, a really cute gift card and a great little way of expressing your creativity. So I've put together a little collage of cockatoos, which is the subject I've chosen. Start with an outline of the shape being the cockatoo that I'm going to draw. I'll pick one of my photos that I would like to reference, try and scale that to an A3 size. I'll start with sort of a beak and a really rough sketch. So I've got the 3 different styles of watercolours that I'm using. I've got the palette colours. These particular ones I've applied on the left-hand side here. So these are watercolour pencils. So this is a technique where you draw on and then you get the water over the top and blend it. And then we have the tube watercolours as well. With watercolour, you always need a blotting cloth nearby, because I'll often wet the brush first, blot it so it's not as wet. So I'll start with pink as a base. I'm just applying different sort of strokes of dots basically. When I first apply it, it's really quite heavy on, and then if you add more water, it dilutes a little bit more. I'm swapping and using one of the watercolour pencils. So there's two techniques you can use with these, but you can draw directly on and then go over the top with some water. Or you can also wet the head of the pencil in water first, and then that, you'll see, applies on like a deeper colour tone. So then I'll grab a brush and I'll wet the head of it with water. When you start to put it directly on the paper after wetting it, that's when papers can start to buckle a little bit, so you like to dab a little bit off first. I'm going over the top of the pencil. Spot to grab a light blue colour and pencil in, just doing different strokes. It's like a rainbowy arc style stroke. Like the browny tone for around the beak, so I'll pick that out of the watercolour palette, the tubes, and pour a little bit into the palette. And being watercolour, it's best to add some water and mix it so it waters down a little bit. Then I'm going to go and do the beak, or around the beak. I find a pencil's easier to do outlines and specifically the eye area. And then I'll grab the finer brush and go around that. If you see the artwork at the moment, you'll see a slight little smudge here. Yeah, it's a little mistake, but it's about embracing that. I'll change that to add another little feather there and you won't even notice. What I like to do and how I add my detail on like an illustration of a former cockatoo of mine is go over the top of it with some textures. This is where I like to use a little bit of a highlighter as well. So I'll outline the feathers. So I'm just doing some more precise pinpointed detail with these felt tip marker pens. And you'll notice I'm doing things really roughly, and with abstract style artwork, that's often best. If you're trying to do things too precisely, it looks too neat. Whereas if you just roll with a stroke as it comes to mind, it sort of flows evenly. I will outline sort of around the eye area. Gold metallic here, and just add a few highlights just wherever you're feeling it, and it makes the sort of artwork pop a little. Done.